Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise unspoken. This episode, entitled Naked and Afraid, I think you'll find pretty interesting and a bit funny too. We have Greg and Stephen Kennedy. Greg miraculously changed his accent again. Imagine that. But, oh, the conversation between these two. I think you will enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and listen to another episode of Miscellaneous Candor. By the way, please supply reviews. We want to know how we're doing. We love feedback. We think it's a gift. And also, follow our podcast. We're going to continue to do this until the wheels fall off. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Until the next time. Remember, subscribe. Welcome, everyone. It's Robbie. I'm back. And here's another episode of Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise unspoken. Greg's back this week, helping me co host. And we also have the return of Stephen Kennedy. I know you all really enjoyed our last conversation. So this should be a wonderful conversation between the three of us in terms of our main topics. Definitely interested to see what these two think and how their different perspectives connect with each other. So, all right, guys. Greg, how are you doing?
Oh, sweaty, Robbie, sweaty.
Okay, Stephen, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. Excited to chat with you and your audience. Hello, hello, people.
Thank
Let's
you. All right.
humans
Yes,
best.
audience. Okay, so it's a little early for me, audience. So if I get a little loopy, that's the reason why.
Is,
So,
is that the reason why, or is it the partying from last night, Robbie?
oh my God, I am not a partier. I don't do
Robbie
that
gets
anymore.
crazy.
I try not to be out in these streets. Oh, okay. So, podcast. I have like a few different ones that I listen to, but I really want to get your feedback, guys. Like, did you guys listen to it? Okay, Stephen, I know you're not a podcast guy, so I have to ask you, did you even try to listen to one this past week or no?
Absolutely not. No, I have not. I just haven't had time. I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna do it this week, and I'm gonna report back to you.
Okay, okay, Greg, how about you?
God, I'm the opposite. I listen to so many podcasts that they all just melded into nothing for me. That's the that's the amazing thing here. Let's
Have you
see.
ever listened to All In?
No, no, I've not. Listen
Okay,
to
so
Pivot.
all
That was back on. That was pretty
yes,
good.
yes, I listened to Pivot too, Scott Galloway. It was the end of Scott Free August. And
Yeah,
so yes, I did listen to that podcast. It
and
was
then
it was interesting.
do you ever have a podcast though that the topic is so dense that you can't listen to it while you're doing other stuff because you just feel like you need to almost take notes?
Yes, and that one is called Pondering AI. Do you
Oh,
guys know that I love to talk? Obviously, we talk about AI on this podcast, but Pondering AI, I try to listen to it. Like even the only time I can do something where I can listen to it is when I'm driving because that's like automatic,
yes,
you
yes.
know. But otherwise, I cannot listen to Pondering AI while I'm working out. I can't listen to it while I'm doing housework. I can't listen to it while I'm just, I have to be in a mode where like 90 or 95% of my brain is focused in on what they're listening to. I don't know if you've ever listened to it before.
I have not, but I should. I should.
Yeah, it's pretty intense about like they have very specialized people who are doing things around AI. So they already had like they had this privacy policy guy who was already doing things around privacy and policy. So now he is like jumped into AI privacy and policy, and it was like this really dense conversation. What was
Hmm.
his name? Matthew Schurer.
Don't
And
know.
so, yeah, I mean, all these people on this podcast, I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of them before, but that's the good part about it. Like, it's just, you're constantly learning something different and new and a perspective on it. So that one gets pretty dense. I was
Yeah,
telling
I gotta
Stephen,
tell you though, I'm not sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
I
what's going
feel a
on?
little bit bad. Steven's not a podcast person, so we're kind of excluding him from the conversation.
We're not
You're
excluding him. We're going to jump in a minute.
As
exclusive,
always,
Robbie.
as
I
always, I always
am
feel
not
excluded.
Right?
I
exclusive.
Isn't
always
she?
feel
Oh my
excluded.
Ah, here we go. Here we go, guys. Okay, why don't you guys just go in for like a couple of like 60 seconds on how exclusive I am?
Well,
About what?
Exactly. See, that's
No,
my point.
no, no. You kind of tapered off your words there.
I said, why don't you all go in on me on how quote unquote exclusive I am for 60 seconds? I'll give you a minute.
Oh,
Just go
man.
on. Banter. 60 seconds.
I
I
feel, I feel like Robbie's a little, she can be a little dramatic, be
yeah,
condescending.
yeah, I'd say dramatic to the point of being exclusionary.
Yeah.
Uh, and sometimes she misinterprets tone
Oh, absolutely.
because she's an elitist.
Absolutely.
What? An
And
elite?
I
Absolutely.
mean, you host this world-renowned podcast, so
First of all, yeah. When it gets to be world renowned, then you can call me an elitist. I'm as far from an elitist as anyone. Now that one I got to jump in. You know this.
Questionable.
Wow, really?
uh,
This is
You
what
know,
they're doing?
I get,
Wow.
I get
Wow.
that vibe from you as well. I mean, if
Oh
both of
my
us feel that way,
goodness.
there's got to be something there, right?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Both of you are just angry for other reasons that I'm not going to go into maybe until episode 25.
Huh.
Yes. So that means there's definitely a future in this podcast. Okay. All right. So we just talked a little bit about at least a podcast that Greg and I listen to.
Can I?
So let's jump into what were you going to say? What?
I was gonna say, and this kind of segues into your AI section. Is that,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm
Greg
on
was
the
talking
spot.
about how jumbled up, there's too much information in some podcasts, and you can't really focus on it. Uh, have you guys? So I've been recently seeing this AI app that can transcribe lectures for you, or people speaking. It can transcribe and put it into notes for you, and organize the notes into different sections and bullets. If I had that tool when I was in college, I only attended half of my lectures in college. I would have attended zero of my lectures in college, and I would have actually passed my classes. It would have been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Have
should
you
probably
tried it?
now.
No, I haven't tried it.
You haven't tried it? Greg, are you microwaving something in the background?
No, my phone was on. The ringer was on. And you know why the ringer was on? Because of you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank
I was
you.
But
All right.
prioritizing your messages this morning.
I do think Greg is a little occupied because a few minutes ago he said he was naked, right? Naked, running around, and two dogs fighting in the background.
Well, I had all the bike kit, like the lycra. Uh, I had that on, so it's like I had to take it off, and I didn't have any other clothes in here, so yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you were just like, what's that? It's that show, except you're not afraid, naked and afraid, but you're not afraid, where they're just like,
It's a good thing this is not a video podcast, otherwise,
Yeah, that would get a little scary.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
This would not be a video podcast with regard to that.
you know how
Or, you know,
you've heard about all these people during COVID, people were by mistake they were getting on their work video calls naked by and they were getting caught. So actually, something like that happened to me while I was at work. I was on a call with about 20 people, and one person got on and he was wearing only a towel. He had just gotten in the shower. He didn't realize his camera was on. So this went on for like 30 seconds, and we're all trying to signal to him, and we're busting out. It was just so absurd. So whether it's inappropriate or not, I've always been ripping on him ever since. Whenever we get on a meeting, I'm like, well, it's a good thing you've got some clothes on this time.
so I don't understand how people, okay, so that whole concept, right? Like we're kind of getting off topic here, guys, but that happens to us sometimes. So I don't understand the concept of quote unquote not knowing your video is on and not knowing your audio. Sometimes I can see how you can miss the mute thing, right? But even that, but not knowing your video is
Do you think
on,
people
like,
that they're like doing it for voyeurism? They like people watching them
I
naked?
don't know. I don't know. I just don't.
I like being watched naked. It's actually
Oh
it's like
my
a
God,
soothing feeling.
Stephen.
Well, I'm just being, we're having an honest, frank conversation, right? So I'm just telling you, like, I like it when people watch me naked.
Otherwise outspoken, yes. Okay, yes. That's the third part of
I have a
the name of
feeling,
our podcast.
Greg likes to be watched naked too. Am I right or am I wrong?
I do. I do. I you know,
There's something
I
like
don't.
it's a like a release. It's a release of this feeling like you need to be seen. Like
But
why
you know,
Okay,
this
this
so how
is
does this relate to AI? Let's talk about that.
but it
right.
goes
If
back.
would
Like,
you
hold
want
on,
to
this is
see?
an interesting topic because it goes back to that. Are you a Seinfeld episode there, Steven? Did you ever watch? Are you on
Oh,
this?
which
Yeah,
one?
the one where there's good naked and there's bad naked, and Jerry's because Jerry's dating that,
Yes,
that
yes, yes, yes,
beautiful blonde woman. I mean,
yes,
it's
yes.
a, I mean, I was almost going to say, at my age, who really wants to look at me naked? But really, at any age, who really wants to look at a dude naked?
That's what Joe Rogan said on his podcast.
Oh, did he? All right. Well, then it's not an original
He was
thought.
talking about that. No, well, I mean, like Marshawn Lynch said on his podcast with Governor Newsom and his sports agent, which I think is it's the craziest podcast that I listen to. It's the governor of California, Marshawn Lynch. But anyway, he says nothing is new under the old moon, and I love that. So, it's not an original thought, but yes, Joe Rogan had a whole thing where he was talking about he couldn't understand. He was interviewing someone how women like guys and you know, their nakedness and what their nakedness consists of and why that's so not really attractive in terms of how women are attractive and how a woman could really want somebody who's like a guy and all like "Rrr," and all the noises that you guys make and why would you want somebody big making all those noises looking how you look when you're naked on top of them. It was a whole thing.
Wow.
I mean, you
Right?
guys wanted to have this conversation.
Sure.
I was just joining
Robbie just
in.
took it in a whole different. She just took it to a whole other
Just replying to what Greg said.
Let's go with good friends. Daddy's not wearing any clothes.
Clearly, we have a newcomer to the podcast, people. Greg's son.
There's the lady.
He just gave me. He gave up the cake. Wow.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. So
Well, you know
we
what?
kind of got off the.
I'm going to go ahead and exit this podcast because I got to go in 2 minutes anyway. So I think I've provided my contribution.
Okay, Greg. Well,
Greg.
thank you
Till
for
next time.
your contribution this week. We'll talk to you another time.
I appreciate you having me on as a co-host.
I don't know if this is really a co-host.
Guest host? I don't
Yeah,
know.
guest host. Guest host. Let's say guest host.
All right.
All right. And maybe, just maybe, put some clothes on.
that should actually be the name of your podcast. Put some clothes on. I mean, what a great name. That would be a fantastic name. Put some
Oh
clothes.
my God. Okay, bye, Greg. Thank you.
Nice seeing you, Greg. Talking to you.
So, Stephen, let's go
Think
back to
about
what
this.
you were talking about. What?
Put some clothes on. What a great. I mean, think about it. That would be a great name.
Well, if he wants to launch that, he can do that on his own.
Okay.
It's definitely not going to be on this one. Okay, so
Okay.
you were talking about like all the dense stuff in AI. You were talking about something. So and we kind of obviously we got off track.
I
So
was, I always see things, on social media and where, there are these new products coming out where it just make your life so much easier. And I always get jealous. Something if I was younger and I could make use of this tool, like I just mentioned, the note taking app,
yes,
just hit record and it transcribes everything and organizes the notes for you. Uh, if we had these tools when we were in school, wow, what a game changer.
do you know anyone that's used it? I think I've seen that. I sent it to actually someone I know in college right now. I don't know if they're going to use it, but have
They
you?
were
Do you know
fully
anyone that have used it?
I don't know anyone that's used it, but I imagine that every college student is using it now. That would be my assumption.
You would think
Rather
too, and I
than writing
wonder if
furiously while you're sitting in there writing furiously and your hands, you can't really focus on taking notes and listening to the lecture at the same time. Now you can just have your notes being taken while you're sitting there just focusing on what the professor's saying.
yes, but my understanding is that when you do write things down, that actually helps you remember them more from a
Yeah.
human capacity.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But you if you are thinking about it from a slacker's perspective, my perspective, when I was in college, there's only a positive side to this. So when I was sitting, in lecture, my notes were like, half-ass. I'd be writing notes for a few seconds, and then I'd turn, I'd be flirting with the girl next to me, then I'd take a nap for like another 5 minutes, and I'd come back, and it's just all over the place. And then, half the time I wasn't even in lecture. So this would even motivate me to go to lecture if I could just sit there and have an AI app taking my notes for me, and I could just sit there and listen and actually, listen to the professor and just focus on what he's saying, and also, at the same time, flirt with a pretty girl next to me, and it's a win-win. I could actually get a C on my exams instead of a D. Imagine that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Stephen. Ah, yes, imagine that. But they say C students are the ones that run the world.
This is true. This is true. And you know why? Because we're good at collaborating. You know where we learn to collaborate? We learn to collaborate when we're cheating on exams with each other.
You think that's the only place
No, I'm just joking. That's one of the
though?
places. That's one of the places.
Okay. Okay. So are there any other tools that you've seen that you think are pretty amazing that could make your life easier or that you wish you had before, this
Yes,
whole
and
AI thing happened? Okay, tell me, tell me.
I can't remember, but I take screenshots of these apps. As they come on my social media, I take so many screenshots, and I just can't remember the other ones right now. Really, uh, that's the one that really amazes me in terms of, what I could have done in the past. But there are other ones.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know, Stephen, and I'm going to tell our audience this, that we've been talking about you coming back more so as a guest host. So maybe when you come back on another episode, you can have some of those ready and you can share that information with our audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would love to hear about that. I don't know, from my perspective, I still use them. Like I use these tools, even with this podcast. Like use there's certain AI tools that you can use to make things easier in terms of creating these things. Now they all have them. Uh, I think I'm really more interested in how we're going to figure out how we're going to manage AI from a not just a privacy perspective, but even in terms of just a continually making sure humans are a part of this. In fact, okay, so last week I did listen, I was on the news. So you know Fareed Zakaria?
Oh yeah, I love him.
Okay, so he had a show and he was talking about AI and he had Fei Li. Do you know who she is?
I don't.
So she's had a Stanford's, there's a Stanford's Human and AI, I'm probably saying the name wrong, uh, center. And so she's like constantly talking about this and constantly talking about how she wants to ensure that human centered AI is a part of what she is pushing forward, but yet
Mhm.
she still is trying to figure out how these machines can be intelligent like humans. Like he has a physics degree, and then I think she has some sort of cognitive brain type of background as
Yeah.
well. And so she has this whole center. It was a really interesting episode. I like Fareed too because he's pretty center, uh,
Yeah.
so I like that about him. So I will listen to some of the things that he says for sure.
It's funny you say that because I feel like I identify with him because he is more left.
Oh, you think he's left?
Well, he's on CNN. That says it right there, right?
Yeah, okay, that's true.
But
But
I see your
there
point. He's
are
not
some
one of
people
the.
who are
He's not
not
one of.
like hardcore
Yeah.
all the way to the
Yeah.
extreme.
He seems like he seems even for people on the right, he seems like he speaks with a voice of reason rather than preference, rather than bias.
Yes, and I think that's why I like him.
It's a very even all his shows are very well informed. They're not just biased. Yeah, I agree with you.
That's my thing. That's why, uh, even though you guys called me elitist earlier,
Yeah.
which I take offense to, I do
Yeah,
like to listen to
there's
things
truth
that
to it. I'm not
I
you know,
don't
I'm
think
not gonna
that
disagree with Greg.
okay, so here's the thing. Without me uncovering too much, there's a few reasons why it's kind of I'm just not an elitist, particularly from like a societal standpoint.
Well,
I am
let's
not.
peel back the layers, Robbie. Let's peel that onion.
I'm not. I mean, I grew up in. I'm not going to say where I grew up just because this is broadcast worldwide, but I grew up in a place that not a lot of people would want to, essentially. And so I've seen a lot of things. And I don't think I mean, I don't feel like, how can I be elitist when I didn't grow up in an elitist lifestyle? That was so far from my purview.
I don't know. I
Just,
know a lot of people that didn't grow up in an elitist lifestyle, but they became elitist later on in life.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I mean, maybe because of I guess I could see people saying that because of, for example, like I said, I like Fareed Zakaria, right? And I do like the fact that he is reasonable. And some people might call him an elitist just for how he speaks and how he presents things. But I
Mhm.
just like people who are informed
Yeah,
and
that makes
speak.
sense.
I don't think, for example, if I was an elitist, there's a lot of people who totally hate Joe Rogan, and there's things that I disagree with him on too, but there's some people who would never listen to his podcast who are deemed elitist, but I'm not one of those people.
Okay.
So
Okay.
anyway, but
Well,
I'm starting to sound defensive right now, so let's
yeah,
let's get back
I love
to
it. This is this
at
is
least I
where
can recognize that. At least I can recognize that. What were you gonna say, Stephen?
I was saying this is great that you're getting defensive because then I can pick at you about it.
That's fine, that's fine. Okay, so anything that came across the news, I mean, everything's just about the election now, but anything that you heard about that you wanted to discuss?
Now there was actually something I want to bring up, and now it's escaping my mind. But yesterday was something. What was it? I can't recall. I can't recall. It was something to do with politics. I'll tell you that.
Oh
God,
my
I know.
goodness. I know
Just
Greg, before he left, he sent me this article. I think he wanted to talk about it. about how the US UK spy chiefs warn of deepening Iran Russia military links. The CIA cites Russia's ability to be able to help Iran on ballistic missiles. MI6 head alleges Russian intelligence has gone a bit feral in terms of Iran. So that was something that I know he wanted to bring up because when he first talked, he was talking about like this kind of undercover NATO that was being built with Iran, Russia, and China. And then there was this article that he'd sent me to, I think it was in the Financial Times, and they were talking about it like an alternative axis. They didn't call it the axis of evil, but they were calling it, something like an undercover NATO.
Well,
So I think he wanted to talk about that.
so yeah, and I've heard about that as well. So the thing is, I try to view this from a very objective view, right? You got to
Yes.
remember these alliances are very complicated, right? I wouldn't call it some kind of evil access because there. Let's keep in mind the U.S. has put its nose in so many places where it didn't belong in order to preserve its status and its financial status and its status in the world as a leader, right? And they have protected countries that were uh, enemies of their presumed allies, which then created alliances between those, other between other countries. It's such a complicated web, right? So I don't, it in the end, every country is looking out for their own people, right? And they have to form alliances where they know they can protect the people of their nation. So I'm not going to label them as, like an evil alliance. I don't want to do that because that's looking at it from the perspective of a U.S. perspective. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, like, I get that, but look, come on now. Putin literally walked into Ukraine and just started shooting missiles because he doesn't like them.
I completely do not agree with what he's doing either. But I'm not going to fault other countries for forming an alliance with him because everyone's
Okay,
looking out
that's
for
a
their own
point.
interests.
Okay. That's a good point. Point taken.
And just the way that I don't agree with the U.S. going into foreign nations and tearing them apart. Same reason, same way. I don't agree with Putin going into Ukraine and tearing them apart. Uh, so I just I try to avoid having a very U.S. perspective. You know what I mean?
Even though you're a United States citizen.
Yes.
Okay.
I try to have a fair perspective.
I mean, I can see your point in terms of the alliance piece, but Iran is pretty barbaric in their approach to life. You don't
Yes,
think?
I do. For I so I think well, in other countries, Iran could say that the U.S. is barbaric in our approach too. Well, right? So uh, that's the thing. I try to look at it from everyone's perspective. I don't want
Barbaric?
to. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't think the United States is barbaric. I mean, like, no, I disagree on that one. I disagree.
Well, uh, yeah, yeah. That's fair for you to have that perspective. That's fair. I mean, that's your view. I do think that we have a tendency to go places where we should not be and kill people where we should not be and influencing where we should not be. And it's not, anytime in my definition of barbaric would be going into another country and killing lots of innocent people, right? Whether it's whether it's collateral damage or not, whether the intent is to kill a few bad apples and you kill many more innocent people, and that's what I view. That's my definition of barbaric.
Okay. I can. Okay. All right. All right. I could.
But you
I
don't agree with it.
cannot
You
disagree.
don't agree with
No,
it.
I
I feel. I
can't
feel like. I feel like there's a little
disagree
tension
with
built
that
in.
point.
I feel like there's
No,
a little
I.
tension built in here.
There's no.
Again, and
There's no tension.
that's where we go back to that elitist. But that's okay.
Oh goodness. No. 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 So, all right. So I agree that that point that you're making, I can see it. But when you said that Iran sees the United States as barbaric, I was looking at that from a inside of the country.
Ah, okay, okay.
That was my perspective. And I don't think that you can equate the way. I
I'm
mean,
not.
there's a lot of
No.
Iranians who have fleed Iran to come here. Like there's a huge Iranian population in America.
Yes.
So that's
Actually,
why I would say from in terms internally, if you were to compare the two, that's how I was looking at the barbaric conversation. But
no.
from what you're saying, I can see your perspective. I think there's a lot more to that conversation that I'm actually not prepared to have right now because I don't have the data and all of the information and the facts on the ground to have it in a way that would be, I think, effective. But I can see your perspective on that.
Well, so even internally, again, we everyone's got their own definitions of barbaric. I think internally, even the U.S. is barbaric. I really do. We've got.
Okay, so we can talk about that on another episode.
All
Thanks,
right. I got
everyone.
so much to share.
We're at time. Thank you for another episode of Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise unspoken. It was great to have Greg today, even though he was only here for a few minutes, and wonderful to have Stephen Kennedy. We might even have him back again as a guest co host really soon. So, looking forward to next week. Thanks again. Bye bye.